Hello everyone, Time to Grind here, and today I wanted to talk about the Culling. And if you don't know what the Culling was, it was a great, one of the first great Battle Royale games on Steam. I think it even eventually came out to consoles. I think it was just Xbox One, I'm not 100% sure. But it was one of the first great Battle Royale games, and it was so much fun. It had a kind of game show aesthetic to it. It felt a lot like Hunger Games. There was like this interesting crafting mechanic. The melee combat was really deep. There were perks and stuff like that, so you could pick what perks you wanted in the game. There were airdrops you could call in. There were guns if you wanted them and stuff like that. And it just had so much depth, and it had so many different ways to play it, because you could focus on doing melee. You could focus on trying to get a gun as fast as possible with your perks and drops and stuff like that. And it was really fun. And you can watch a million different YouTube videos talking about what happened to it. But long story short, the devs just kept killing their game slowly. Every update, so the game in its day one, thing, it was good. There were a lot of problems with it, but the gameplay was good, and that's why it started getting popular. And the first couple updates were fine, they made things better and stuff like that. Maybe a questionable decision here or there, but eventually every single update that the Culling put out just made the game worse. And they just refused to listen to community feedback. They refused to revert anything, and they killed their game. They killed their game very slowly. There was even a time down the road near the end of the game's lifespan where they kind of did this huge update that supposedly you fixed a lot of things, and it brought back actually a couple players, a decent amount of players. My friends and I started playing it again. There was a whole new map, and then guess what they did? They slowly, update by update, killed their game. And it really seemed like they truly wanted to kill off their own game, but that's not what we're going to be talking about today, because you can watch videos talking about that, and that's not what this video is. Because if you don't know, they released the Culling 2 a while back, probably about a couple weeks ago, and it was a disaster. It had a peak player count at 249, and within 2 days the player count there were only 2 people playing the game. And obviously, not only is that not good for any game, even if you're a card game and at least you have 2 people to play with, that's not good. But especially in a Battle Royale mode where you need, a ton of people per game, not going to do good. But the Culling 2 was terrible, because it literally didn't have anything to do with the Culling. It literally was just a PUBG kind of knockoff. It didn't bring anything that, the Culling was unique. It didn't bring over any of the reasons why the Culling was, very successful. It was just literally a extremely cheap knockoff of PUBG, and it was terrible. So the devs what they're doing is they're shutting down the Culling 2, and they're refunding everybody the game if you bought it, so that's nice. And what they're going to be doing is they're going to be trying to rework the Culling and to make it good and start just developing that. And so what they're doing is they turned the test server for Culling, they just reverted it back to day one. Just straight up day one, right when the game was launched. And their goal is to keep that as kind of like a reference point, so you'll always be able to just play the test server. And there's actually a decent amount of people playing the test server right now, because, people actually like the Culling, like what it originally was. So there's a lot of issues with day one. There are some things like the stun gun is stupid OP. You have a lot of things that need to be changed. I don't know if they're going to be changed, because the kind of goal is to have a reference point of it, but they're wanting to kind of rework the Culling, like the actual main client, to be as fun as the test client, because there's 2 maps in there right now, so I don't think they want to just revert everything back to day one and then just build up on that. What they're going to do is they're going to try to fix the normal client to make it more fun than the test client. So they're always going to keep the test client up. And it's very interesting, because I personally haven't seen any developers do this before. Normally if a game is dead, the most sometimes I see is they do a huge update, maybe a single time down the road, just to help, people that are still playing the game. Like, say the game's still decently popular, but the game's dead. Like, there's no more development or whatever, but there are a lot of broken things or something. Sometimes you might see a developer just put out a single update, after not talking about it for like 5 years, just to fix some of those things, just to help out some people that still play the game. Sometimes you can expect stuff like that, but I've never seen a company put out a first game, kill it, then put out a second game that's terrible, kill it, like by actually shutting it down and removing it off Steam, and then trying to go back to the first one. And one of the things I think is going to be hard is because they even talked about in the video, you know, they didn't do a very good job with talking with the community in the first one. That's, you know, kind of obvious considering there were so many people in the community crying out for things like, okay, you know, stop messing with the melee combat, or you know, because the melee combat at the beginning, or you know, maybe after a couple updates, were like amazing. It was very, very good, and they just kept like watering it down and making it more convoluted. And because the melee combat has always supposed to be, you know, kind of like a rock paper scissors type thing, but then it eventually was just like, oh, okay, we're both just gonna do the same punching thing, or like just constantly spam guard break or something. My memory of the culling is kind of hazy, but I remember the melee combat being really, really fun at the beginning, and they just killed it. So there's a lot of things that they just did not listen to the community about, and they did admit it, and they are saying that their goal for this one is to actually listen to community feedback. But when the devs are so incompetent in the first place to let something like the culling, like the original culling, happen, I am a little wary on if this is going to actually work out, because it's not that hard like to listen to the community at some points. Like, I'm trying to think what was going through their minds when they were making some of the decisions in the culling. Because when you have the entire community unanimously all saying something is broken or something is not working and it needs to be fixed X way, or if you make a change and the entire community is unanimously saying revert that change now, how is it not obvious that you don't need to do something? Because they just straight up they didn't listen to the community at all. Like, you know, I'm not like just being, you know, kind of exaggerating and being like, oh, well, the devs suck, they didn't really ever talk to us. There was no communication. They didn't listen to anything. They just kept updating the game however they wanted to and kept killing it. That's one of the reasons it pains me to talk about the culling, because my friends and I loved the game. But, you know, I am kind of optimistic. Kind of, at the very least, you will always be able to play the day one, you know, game. So even if some things are really, really OP or something, if you have a couple of friends that could, you know, fill out, you know, just a private server or whatever like that, if something's really that OP, just say, okay, nobody use stun gun or something like that, or just make stupid rules like, okay, you can only stun gun once and then you can't stun gun for the rest of that specific combat or something like that. I mean, obviously, if you're playing matchmaking, there's nothing you can do about that. But for me, it's mainly been I've had enough friends to play an entire game and have it be fun. So kind of small things like that don't really worry me too much, because I'm happy, because at the very, very least, I'll always have day one culling, because the plan is to keep it there permanently in the test client. And they're going to try to eventually make the normal client as good as the test client, you know, by kind of supposedly listening to the community and being like, oh yeah, people are saying they really like the combat here, but they don't like the gunplay. Okay, well maybe we'll put the way the game, you know, combat is, the melee combat, we'll put that in the live combat. Maybe we tweak how the gunplay is and stuff like that. And hopefully they can eventually kind of make the culling kind of like a remastered version of the test client, the day one thing, because the day one, although it had its problems, was a very good game. So overall, I just wanted to let you guys know also, because if you own the culling, you can just go download the test client and have a lot of fun with it, you know, in day one patch if you ever played that, and it will become free to play at some point, something I didn't really mention, but once they kind of start doing all this stuff, the original culling is going to go free to play, so that'll be really nice, especially for the player base. But either way, that's all I wanted to kind of talk about. I definitely recommend you at least trying out day one culling if you own the culling, or just, you know, waiting out for it to go free to play, because it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to buy it for $5 to play the day one. But yeah, that's my shtick. Part of the fun is making these videos is not only talking at you guys, but obviously the conversation that comes afterwards. So if you have played the culling in the day one client as it is now, if you played it back in the day and you were disappointed just like I was, if you have any experience with the culling, or even you just watched the culling and you have some opinions on it, let me know in the comments down below, because I love talking to you guys. And if you enjoyed this video, then consider leaving a like down below and subscribing to see more content. New videos come out every Wednesday and Sunday. And like always, guys, I hope you guys have a great rest of the day, and see you guys next time.